What's up, Vankas? This is the Red Flags podcast brought to you by BetMGM. We have an amazing guest on the pod today, Rob Smedley, former F1 racing engineer for Jordan Williams and Ferrari, also the founder of the Global Karting League. If you have a kid who wants to get into karting, but you don't want to spend $800 million, this is the guy who's changing all of that. His link is in the description. It was an amazing episode. Huge thanks for having him on. Now let's just get on to it. Enjoy Rob Smedley.
What's up, Vanka?
Hello, Vankas.
Oh, how's everybody doing? Did you miss us? We missed you.
Did you miss your two favorite Vankas? Because, Vankas, we have a special episode for you today. We have a guy who, if he was around during the era of Drive to Survive, I don't think no one would care. Maybe no one cares about Gunther Steiner. Maybe no one cares about Daniel Ricciardo, because we have a guy who is the king of the iconic F1 radio, the king
Yes.
of trackside engineering, and he's about to be the godfather of what becomes the next great Formula One champion. He doesn't have to be a rich fuck from Canada or from Monaco or wherever the fuck these rich guys come from. He's trying to make this shit equitable for once. We have Rob Smedley on the podcast. Welcome, Rob.
What up, dudes? I like the intro.
Yeah.
You brought the energy. We did say
Yes.
we brought the US levels of energy.
That's right. That's what we
maximum. We're getting 100% out of the car today, sir. 100%.
something that you know all about. Well, Rob, there's so much that we want to talk to you about, because you've got such an amazing career. You're such a personality, and then you also have this like really incredible thing that you're working on now.
Well, we should start with his F1 career, so people, newer fans should know that you were a race engineer for a long time. We want to know. First, I think I want to ask you. A lot of people might know, how you got into the sport or not. We can. First of all, what the fuck is a race engineer? Because people like to pretend. This might be a dumb question. People like to pretend that they know what it is, but from a viewer's perspective, all we see is like when GP gets sassy or strat mode 4, or like from the public's perspective, it's just the sort of relationship part on the radio. We don't really see the other stuff. So maybe I would be curious, I'm curious about you personally, but like you're like one of the first people I've had that could like really sort of give me a fuller picture of like what the fuck it even is, other than like the famous guy that being the famous guy that says, Felipe, baby, stay cool.
I can't remember that.
Yeah, you never
like
heard
what
that
the fuck
before.
is the thing that you do? Because
Right.
other than just being like, we are checking, like it's obviously more important than that.
Yeah, I mean, well, first of all, there's there is. It's difficult to pin down because it changes from team to team, and it definitely changed significantly during the time that when I started, which was in the late 90s, to when I finally decided to hang up my clipboard, which actually as a race engineer was about 2010, and then I continued working until in the teams until about 2018, 2019. So it changed a lot. And it changed a lot because the teams got much bigger. So when I started, you had to basically, there was you and another engineer on the car, and you had to work everything out for yourself. So you did a lot of things really badly. But you had to have a really fundamental understanding of the car, vehicle dynamics, of tire science, tire dynamics, chassis dynamics, aerodynamics, and you also had to play nanny and driver psychologist and sports psychologist to the driver. All of that shit that seems to be like the main part of the job now. But you kind of, and then as the teams grew and you got more and more specialist engineers, you still were in overall charge of that car. You know, when I ran the car, right? I was in charge. There was never any ambiguity about that. I would say that the race engineer today, there is ambiguity. Each of the specialists kind of runs their area, and they, you know, depending on who the race engineer is, the ones with more experience still run the car, still operate the car. They still manage the car, if you like. The lesser experienced ones just kind of get told what to do. And they act as... There's a guy who works here in my business now that has been with me for a long, long time through many Formula One teams, and he calls them the radio repeater. So somebody says something and they kind of just like, you know, send it straight out. You know, whereas the more experienced ones, the ones with more wherewithal, they kind of think, you know, you're listening to lots of different things. It's like being a TV director, I guess, right? You're listening to 15 different like things through your earpiece, and sometimes you listen to it and you think that doesn't sound right. You know, sometimes you listen to it and you think, yeah, that kind of coincides, and that gels with what the aerodynamicist wants to do and what the tire scientist wants to do, and that's going to help us to get more points in this race. So I'm gonna do that. So, you know, that's what I think. What is to sum it up, because I'm rambling like all good engineers. What should the race engineer do? The race engineer should manage the car. He should be in charge of that car. He should be in charge of optimizing the car and getting the best out of the package, which is the car and the driver. Not all race engineers do that nowadays.
So you know, Matt and I have a film background. You're kind of, when you were doing it, you were like an auteur. You had like that Quentin. You were Quentin Tarantino, like, you know, every shot. I've already filmed the movie in my head. You were on that David Fincher vibe, and now it's
Guy
like
Ritchie.
Now it's kind of in like the Marvel MCU burner. You've got like producers there being like, no, you need to do this, and it's not as good as it was back in the day. Is what we're hearing from you.
And by run the car, does that like just to, because I'm really into the specifics and all that stuff you said about vehicle dynamics and tire science. That's all like breathing to me, second nature. By run the car, do you mean like, I want the ride height to be here, I want the wing to be this size, I want, you know, this level of camber? Like, you're dictating to the mechanics how you want the car set up? Is that the main sort of Felipe, brake here, don't brake there, brake? Is that what you mean 100%. By running the car?
100%. You manage. I mean, we use that terminology. I don't know why we use that terminology. You run the car. You manage the car, right? You manage it. You manage every single aspect of the car. And I think I am, although I've been telling myself for more than 2 decades that I'm not a control freak, I'm a fucking terrible control freak, right? I am really like awful control freak. And that's only because I want things to be done right. You know, I'm obsessed with detail and things being done right. So when I was a race engineer, again, I started in a period where there wasn't enough of us that like you had any choice but to manage the car, but to be in overall control of every single aspect of that car to optimize it. And when you got it wrong, right? It was on your shoulders. And so as I progressed, you know, through the teams, you know, Formula One changed and more money came into it and more people came into the team. And at the same time, I went to bigger teams as well. You know, I progressed kind of through the hierarchy of the teams. So I ended up on a car now where there used to be 2 of us. You end up on a car where, including the people back in the remote operations center, you know, the mission control, there's 60 people on the car. But I was still in control of that car. I was still in control of every single aspect of that car. You know, I knew everything that was going on that car, and I made it my business to understand it at a level of detail that was perhaps, you know, maybe a little bit obsessive. But, you know, the mechanical setup of the car, the aerodynamic setup of the car, how much we were maximizing the tires, how we got the best out of the driver, how we got the best out of the race strategy. You know, I wanted to go deep into all of those verticals to try and understand them all, so that when I got some specialists telling me, you know, this is what we should do with the car, I would be able to understand fundamentally whether or not that was correct.
I see.
So that's kind of how I was slightly deranged. Well,
I think it's interesting, you know, within your career, obviously, like the most iconic years are with Ferrari, which is, you know, what we understand is also just like the king of that, of just like, there's one of the challenges of Ferrari is how many cooks there are in the kitchen. And, you know, we even see now, like, we we make fun of Ferrari every time one of their drivers, even today, they call in. They always say like, "We are checking, like, give us a minute," and it feels like it's like
happening?
You don't have a
What is
minute. This is like we need the answer right now. Like it feels like and this is something that even Newey's talked about with Newey going to Aston Martin. He was like, I don't want to have to like 18 people to check on what I'm doing. I want to be able to just make a decision. That's the decision. And seems like Ferrari, there's a direct opposition to that kind of way of thinking. So did you run into that in your time there?
No, because it was a very different beast to how it is now. We had, don't forget when I was there, my boss was Ross Brawn, and his boss was Jean Todt. Right. So, the structure was completely flat. So although Ferrari in the recent past have talked about having a flat structure, they didn't really have a flat structure. They had a very vertical hierarchical structure where every decision needed 15 people to sign it off. If you're going to win if you're going to win a Formula One race, never mind a world championship, if you're going to win a Formula One race, you can't have a structure like that. You've got to empower your people to make the decisions. So you employ the best people. They cost you a lot of money. But they will, when the moment comes and you need them to make fast decisions and understand things faster than their 9 other counterparts up and down the pit lane, then that's when they earn their money. And I think that's when I first went to Ferrari, we were very empowered to do our jobs. Ross would empower us completely to get on with and do our jobs. And if we fucked it up, then he would have to step in and he would have to say, well, boys, we kind of need to come back in this direction or we need to do that. So if you didn't mess it up with Ross, if Ross wasn't talking to you, you knew you were doing a good job. You knew you were making all the right decisions, and that's what you get paid to do, and I've always felt that, responsibility throughout my Formula One career and, with what I do now. I've always felt that responsibility that you're empowered to make decisions. You've got to make the right decisions. Sometimes, Formula One is brutal. You've got to make decisions faster than any other business on the planet. And there's literally hundreds of millions of people watching you make that decision. So when you fuck it up, they can all comment. They all comment 30 seconds later. And you quite often think, I don't need you to comment 30 seconds later. 2 seconds after I'd fucked it up, I knew I'd fucked it up. Thank you. Right? But that's the nature of the game. But you've got to make sure that you get it right, 8 times out of 10. You've got to be under that massive duress, massive pressure and be getting it right 8 times out of 10. But you've got to be empowered to do that. You can't then have a chain of command where you need, DocuSign sign off at every single level. It just doesn't work.
Speaking of making hard decisions, I mean, and I want to drill into you grew up wanting to be an engineer and then all of a sudden you're, a nanny for, egomaniacs. Like that's like you literally become an engineer so you can look at numbers and not have to deal with people. And then here you are dealing with maybe the most difficult people in the world. So I definitely want to touch on that, but making difficult decisions, these decisions are broadcast now on the radio, something that, you didn't have as much exposure to. When you see something like team orders, like Hungary in the McLaren situation where you had hey, Oscar, Lando, would you, when you get around to it, maybe it would be nice if you could move over at your convenience, whenever it's good for you. Right. And and you were it was brutal and it broke your heart when Fernando was behind Felipe and you said, Felipe, Fernando is fat. You just came in and you were kind of, by your own sort of admission, a dick about it. I mean,
right. Well, it's would you rather get stabbed in the chest or die from a million paper cuts? Is a little bit, you had the courage to just, point blank range,
stab him in the chest.
Yeah, exactly.
just execution style. And your old colleague Andrea Stella,
your old running mate.
Your old running mate was running over things over at McLaren. When I don't know how much you're how closely you're still following what's going on, but if that McLaren situation, did you what did you feel like when you heard that and watched that?
Look, Andrea's an ex-colleague, a friend of mine, so I don't want to, I don't want to talk specifically about McLaren, but what I would say is in general, I think in Formula One now, it's just, there's too much kind of like pussyfooting around, exactly as you've just said, like the way the radio messages go to the driver. I don't watch every single race, but the races I watch, I'm like, oh, fucking grow a pair, man. Just tell him what you need to tell him, right? You shouldn't be, if you come into this relationship, right? It's like any, you give any narcissistic sociopath an inch and they'll take a yard, right? So, so don't give them that inch to start with, right? Don't give them this fact that, I've got some kind of inferiority complex here and I'm going to tell you something and maybe you'll do it. No, mate, we're at work, right? I'm going to tell you something, you do it. When my boss tells me something, I do it. That's the way the world works. And if we don't do that, right, as long as we're not working for narcissists and sociopaths and they're telling us to do the wrong things, if we don't do that in a high-pressure environment like this, the whole thing's going to get spun out. It's going to get spun off its axis. So let's just kind of get down these ground rules where how we all engage, the rules of engagement, how we talk to each other. So there's a lot of this stuff like, should I make a decision? Should I ask this driver to move over or that driver to move over? And will his feelings be hurt? Look, you're only ever going to get one driver at the end of the race who's happy, right? You can't please all of the people all of the time. So just fucking grow a pair and get on and make the decisions that you need to make. And I think that's true in Formula One and it's true in life, right? You kind of like walking on eggshells and you don't make a decision. You just end up in the worst possible place.
Right. Indecision is still a decision.
Indecision is still a decision. Exactly. It's just the wrong decision.
Right. So when people, there's a lot of chatter, when you hear GP and Max, because they get so spicy with each other and GP is, kind of can get pretty snippy with him, but you appreciate that? You appreciate that dynamic?
Oh man, I love Giampiero. He's such a great guy, I'm constantly telling him his time's up in Formula One. He's had his world championships now. Stop being greedy and come and work for me. So, might happen one day, might not, but you heard it here first. But I love GP and he's very much like an engineer how I was, right? The driver is, you've got to be, I remember when I first started, and it was Gary Anderson who said to me, you need to be, he used a term which I think is great. You've got to be pissing in each other's pockets, right? It doesn't matter who you are. There's no hierarchy here. It's you two guys trying to get the best out of this thing. It's a pressure cooker as well, right? So you can't have this. You've just got to have this completely open relationship. And sometimes you're going to get pissed off with him. He's going to get pissed off with you. But at the end of the day, it's like any kind of deep relationship or true relationship. You can have those moments and then 5 minutes later it's all okay, right? And that's what it should be like between an engineer and a driver when they've got that relationship right. And I think between Max and GP, they've definitely got that relationship right. GP tells him how it is and Max will fire back, and one thing I really like about GP, and again that's very similar to how I always felt as well, is GP, sometimes the drivers can get slightly sociopathic with their views on the team, right? These are guys who kind of like are staying up until, midnight, a lot of the nights, working for you and getting things right. And you've heard GP a couple of times, and I've definitely said it to my drivers, I think you need to go back in the garage and apologise to the guys because how you've been behaving is not very adult. Or you haven't been a very nice person, put in polite terms. So get in there and apologize. GP's done that with Max. I certainly did it in my time. So I think that the way Giampiero conducts that, himself on the radio, and it's probably just a reflection of their real relationship. They've got this good relationship. They've got a relationship that works. They both rely on each other, fully, and they both trust each other fully. And when you've got that, you can talk to each other how you want, right? You don't have to have this like control, check, 10-4, all of this nonsense, right? We are checking. Well, fucking hurry up then, because I'm driving a car 200 miles an hour.
Right. Vegas, as you know, we have teamed up with BetMGM this season, and we are using BetMGM lines to make all of our picks. And if you haven't signed up for BetMGM yet, use bonus code DADDY, and you will get up to $1,500 first bet offer on your first wager with BetMGM. Here's how it works. You download the BetMGM app, and you sign up using the bonus code DADDY, because we're fun. Deposit at least $10 and place your first wager on any game. You'll receive up to $1,500 in bonus bets if your bet loses. Just make sure that you use the bonus code DADDY when you sign up. Don't forget, if you haven't signed up for BetMGM yet, use bonus code DADDY and get your first $1,500 first bet offer today. See BetMGM.com for terms. 21 and over. U.S. promotional offers not available in New York, Nevada, Ontario, or Puerto Rico. Gambling problem? Call 1-800-GAMBLER. Available in the U.S. Call 877-8-HOPE-NY or text HOPE-NY for New York. Call 1-800-NEXT-STEP for Arizona. 1-800-327-5050 for Massachusetts. 1-800-BETS-OFF for Indiana. 1-800-981-0023 for Puerto Rico. First bet offer for new customers only. Subject to eligibility requirements. Rewards are non-withdrawable bonus bets that expire in 7 days. In partnership with Kansas Crossing Casino and Hotel. Don't forget, if you haven't signed up for BetMGM yet, use bonus code DADDY and get your $1,500 first bet offer today.
And how do you, when you build this, when you build these close relationships, does it make it that much harder when you have a Felipe move over a situation? And how do you come back from something like that? How do you rebuild? Does trust get ruptured in situations like that? Because ultimately, you two are like your own little unit for most of the time. And then all of a sudden it's like, well, actually there's something higher than the two of you. You both sort of answer to your loyalties ultimately lie to a higher power at the end of the day.
Yeah. And look, whenever I've had to, make decisions like that or, be the one who's delivering the message, you have to remember that at the end of the day, it's not called Massa Formula One. It's not called Smedley Formula One. It's not called Alonso Formula One. It's called Ferrari Formula One, right? Our paychecks at the end of the month have Scuderia Ferrari, Gestione Sportiva written on the top of them. So that's who we work for. And you've got to get that fine balance right because, a race engineer cannot be, 100% focused on what the team needs. Otherwise, he's not optimizing his vehicle. And in fact, if you're not optimizing your package, you're actually doing a disservice to the team. So you've got to just get that fine balance. It's a real tightrope of getting it right for, optimizing your car, but don't overstep the mark that in optimizing your car, you do that to the detriment of the team. The team always has to come first. And I think I've always been like that, even in my business now, it's like, we can't let our egos get in the way. We can't be a bunch of individuals. We're a team that has to come together, to do things.
Well, I'm curious your thoughts on, Ferrari, because, you were there with Brawn, who, brought them the glory. And then after he left, it's been pretty bad. And now seems like they're starting to make their way back. Do you believe in this kind of the Fred Vasseur, the new Fred Vasseur Ferrari, that he can kind of bring Ferrari back to its former glory?
Yeah, I do. I like Fred. I've got a lot of time for Fred and for what he's doing. I often my barometer in Formula One. I'm still, I don't know what you call it, unfortunate enough to still get offers from Formula One teams. And my barometer is always, would I go and work for them? Right? When I look at someone and I think, would I go and work for that? And there's actually there's not many people who I would, but Fred is one of them. Fred is somebody who I'd go and work with because I think, I know Fred socially, but I think we would get on well in a work environment. He's very straight talking. He brings a lot of humility, and the human side. But I think what he does, is he's very intelligent, but he's also very disarming. And I think that's a good quality to have in a top manager in a pressure cooker environment like that, because he's not piling more pressure on. You don't need pressure, right? The top people in Formula One, the people who succeed in Formula One, you don't need any more pressure adding on. Thank you very much, right? You're already in this ridiculously pressured environment. And if you are a successful person in Formula One, there will be no stronger critic of you and your work than you yourself, right? So you don't need anybody from the outside putting any more pressure on. That's just negativity. And I think Fred has done a good job in doing that and demonstrating that as well and looking after people, because you can't just say it as well. You've got to physically do it. When you're in a position of seniority in a Formula One team, you have to be seen to physically looking after your people. You know, you can't just say, oh, this is a no blame environment, and then the first thing you fuck up, someone's out the door, right? That doesn't work, right? You got to say, this is a no blame environment, and when we fuck it up, right, if you need someone to blame, right, blame me. I'm in charge, right? If that's all we need to do today, if that's going to make us all feel better, blame me. I'm in charge, and then we can get on with actually solving the problem. And I think Fred is good at that. Fred's good at looking after his people, you know, taking the flak. But he's very intelligent and he knows what is needed to make a successful Formula One. And you'd be surprised that not every team principal does know what is needed to make a successful Formula One team, by the way. But Fred is one of them.
Is there anyone else on the current grid that you either had worked with before that kind of says like, oh, this is a guy who kind of I would vibe with?
I think if you look at the guys, you know, there's a few guys who are either, you know, well established as team principal. You know, I can talk about all the guys who, you know, like Ross, who's no longer on the grid. I think Ross is, you know, a superstar. His record speaks for itself. I learned so much from Ross. I learned so much from Jean Todt. You know, there were two guys that were kind enough for whatever reason, and I still don't understand why, to kind of mentor me, to put, you know, take me under their wing when I started at Ferrari. And then you look at the current crop of established guys, you know, people like Todt. I think Todt is a superb manager. You know, he gets it. And I think the bits that he doesn't get, or let's say if you go back, you know, when he first started in Formula One, if you go back 10 years, where he lacked in experience, he makes up, in intellect and enthusiasm and grit and will to win. You know, you got to have that will to win. You got to keep, you know, you get knocked down, you get back up, you get knocked down, you get back up. And Formula One is like that. You got to do that all day, every day. So Todt is, you know, a superstar, and you know, that's definitely someone who, you know, I would go and work with. And then, you know, the new guys coming through, you know, Andrea Stella, obviously. Andrea is an ex-colleague of mine. He's a friend of mine from Ferrari. You know, he's very considered. He is a guy that, you know, kind of builds a lot of trust and therefore competence around him. And he's very sensible, right? He doesn't try to do things which are, you know, he's not trying to, you know, do things which are, you know, off the map, like, you know, crazy. He's just very sensible. He knows what is needed to build a winning Formula One team. And he's done it, right. You know, along with his colleagues there, he's done a great job. So I think, you know, if you go from historic to established to up and coming, you know, they're the guys probably.
Well, he's running an F1 team, and you see James Valls, he was a race engineer. He's running an F1 team. Why aren't you running an F1 team?
It's a good question.
Exact same resume.
Similar resume, yeah. I don't know. You know, I never say never. You know, like I said, I'm still lucky to, you know, whatever, fortunate for I don't even know what it is, but I still get offers. And you know, what I say to people is this: like, when the right thing comes along, then there's every chance that I will do it. But it has to be something where, if somebody wants me to, let's put it like this: if somebody wants me to come and run their Formula One team, you have to give me the autonomy to do it, right? That doesn't mean to say that I'm some kind of like egotistical sociopath, but I can't have a bunch of people above me that don't really understand the sport but control the purse strings, who are going to be second guessing every move. So, you know, and it needs to be a decent project as well. It needs to be a project of taking something from, you know, somewhere which is probably midfield to the front of the grid, you know, and it also needs to have that chance. You know, if I'm going to do it, I want to be with a bunch of people who are fully committed to winning. And believe it or not every Formula One team is fully committed to winning. You know, if I want to do 20 odd races per year, it's true. It's absolutely true. If I'm doing 20 odd races a year, if I'm getting on an aeroplane 24 times a year, it's because I want to win. It's because there's a chance of winning on a Sunday afternoon and there's a chance of winning the big prize at the end of the season. Otherwise, I just have no interest.
Well, I wanted to maybe get into what you're not running a Formula One team. You've started this, the Global Karting League.
Yeah, I'm running a go-kart team instead.
Wait, but I want.
So let's just kind of bring it all back down.
But no, I think at least from what we understand, the kind of the ethos of it, it has a potential to actually be, hugely impactful if what you are dreaming for it can become a reality. So can you kind of, I think, we're Drive to Survive fans turned, now F1 psychos. So we've been learning about this the last few years and trying to understand more and more about like the come up, what this whole kind of ecosystem is like, what the systems involved, how it all works. And it seems like you have like a mission to try to change that. So can you explain a little bit about kind of like what the mission statement of what you're doing is?
Yeah, sure. So I think that this is it was the right time for me to do this. I stopped with the teams in 2019, and I knew that I didn't want to do that version of Formula One anymore. That's what I was totally clear on. But I wasn't quite sure what I wanted to do. So I kind of took a couple of years just thinking about it. What happened was what I've come to the conclusion fairly early on was I wanted to do something that gave back. I'm from a fairly humble background, and I ended up in this dream position in Formula One, and building kind of I guess a dream life if you like. So I know that I've been like super fortunate. I know that I've been right place, right time. That's where a lot of my breaks have come from, and therefore I looked inwardly at myself and I thought, well, what was the chances of a kid like me getting to Formula One and being successful in Formula One? I don't know, like 10 million to 1, 100 million to 1, 1 billion to 1. So I started to think about like, how do we lower the odds? How do we make the odds better for kids from more normal backgrounds to get to Formula One? And if you look at, the engineering pathway, it's fairly well democratized, right? You just got to be clever. That's all you need to be. If you're clever, you'll get there. If you have higher intellect, you will get to Formula One, and you have enough tenacity. The driver pathway was much less democratized. And I had no idea about this, right? I'd spent like 20 odd years in the ivory tower of Formula One thinking, well, drivers come in, we pay them lots of money, they drive the cars fast, and if they're not very good, we sack them at the end of the year and we fit a new one. What I didn't know was this pathway to get to Formula One and where it started. So I started to have a look at this. At the go-karting, at the very grassroots is go-karting. And I started to have a look at this, and what blew me away was it was a great sport, right? It teaches kids about discipline. It teaches them, about the basic crafts of driving vehicles fast and how to race and how to be successful. It also teaches them, I think it's just a great sport in general. It teaches kids about that life is about 90% of life is about losing, right? So get used to it. Because if you can't handle that, if you think it's 100% winning, you're going to be very disappointed, and you're going to probably not be able to handle, or be successful in the wider world. So I just thought it was a great sport, and I thought, what a great sport. Why aren't there more kids involved? Why are the numbers so low in every single country? Well, the reason is, when you start looking at it, because it's incredibly expensive to do it at the top level. You're going to go and do the leisure or leisure for your listeners version of it, which is like $25-50 or whatever it is to go and like whiz around for half an hour in like the indoor karts at like 20 mile an hour or something. But then when the kids want to progress to the outdoor stuff, which is like the start of their pathway to get to Formula, it's just insanely expensive. It's literally, to dip your toe in the water, it's 10-20 grand. And then if you want to be successful up at national level, it's 150 grand. If you're going to be successful after that, beyond that, at World Championship level, it's 250 grand. And this is all coming from the families. So where are we finding the talent? That we can't, we're either the the most fortunate sport in the world that all of our talent comes from this single gene pool of very wealthy kids, right. Or there's something called Occam's razor, and in fact, there's super talented drivers right throughout the world who've never ever going to get this opportunity. So it was about trying to give kids this opportunity. So we set something up. We set a karting league up. I built the karts. I mean, not me physically, but we designed the karts. We built the karts. We set up a completely different operating model. We collapsed the price point by about 95% compared to like top level, like national karting. So you can do a season of karting for like 5K. It's still a lot of money. I get that, but it's 5K compared to 100K. And all the karts are the same. We built a lot of whiz-bang software, exactly the same type of stuff that we'd use in Formula One. So it starts to look for the drivers. It starts to understand which drivers is in which kart at what point. So it identifies whether or not they're talented. And then that means that we can kind of start to get onto these kids and say, right, we're going to like take you through an academy program and. So we did it in the UK. It was super successful, or is continuing to be super successful. And we're coming to America this year.
Wow.
So
what's the oldest you can start?
Yeah,
Matt, I think you might be a bit old. I'm guessing, and I think you're older than 17. I mean,
yes,
2-3 years, something like that. That's all.
Almost double.
Yeah.
Does the cart like buzz when it senses talent? Like you said that the cart like tracks.
Yeah. Do you have ChatGPT being like, "This is the next Lewis Hamilton"?
Do you get like a notification every time some kid takes some turn flat out?
Well, maybe not flat out, but like we've integrated it with a lot of so we built simulation tools here. So simulation analytics tools, exactly the same stuff that we would have in a Formula One team. We've built it all here in my business. And so basically it's constantly spitting out reports. So we can see like the kids who are, ahead on their development curve. And you imagine this is like where we're doing it with one hub. In the UK, by the end of the year, we will have 2 more in the US. So that's, we're now talking about 1,000 kids who are through the system. By the end of the year after, there'll be 5,000 kids who are going through the system. We want to get to in the next, 6 years, we want to be in 50 different locations around the world, including all of the non-traditional markets, India, China, Africa. We want to be in all of those markets, constantly looking for kids. And by that point, we'll have had 1 million kids through the program. So it's fairly lofty, it's fairly ambitious, and 1 million different data points.
I mean, it's potentially something that's like far more impactful than working on the team currently. It has the potential to like really change the face of Formula One.
But Rob, I think you're missing a turn here. How are you? So you're going to find the next Lewis Hamilton, and you're not going to manage him. You're not going to take a little taste. You're going to let somebody else scoop him up. That makes no sense. I mean, you see this all the time where like, look at poor Nick DeVries. He got like 3 seconds in Formula One, and he's now like owing all his backers like $1 million.
Yeah.
Like, shouldn't they have to, make them sign a contract? Like if we get you to Formula One, you have to give some money back to the program, back to the kids.
100%. So what I said, Matt, is that I said I would be the worst manager in the world. I didn't say that we weren't going to have management contracts with these really good kids.
Okay.
I see. Okay, I missed that.
Yeah.
I missed it. But you're just going to be nowhere
listen,
near
he might
them.
be an engineer, but he's a business guy. He came on the thing. He was stressing about numbers.
Okay, so I want to just get into to big karting, the evil part of this. Why is it so expensive? Why is it? Is there a particular reason? Is it just greed?
Oh, I don't know. It's greed. I mean, it's kind of like, like one of the things that I noticed about karting, especially at the very top levels, was that compared to Formula One is like hyper regulated, right? Even now with financial and cost control, it's hyper regulated. And I think in karting, it's not. It's very easy just to continue to spend lots and lots of money. So if you have that money, if you have that budget and you want to buy another 5, 10, 15, literally 20 engines, you can go and do that. And then you've got all the tuning costs that go on top of it. And you've got your trainers, and you've got, you might be out in the kart 5 days a week. You might be in it from like Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, Saturday, Sunday, so 2 days of practice with 10 sets of tires per day. So the costs are not controlled.
Right, but call me a cynic. There's probably a reason why the cost isn't controlled, because like if I make karts, I make karting engines, I make the little itty bitty tires, I'm incentivized for there not to be controls. Because if it was spec'd out, if there was like an engine limit, like there is in Formula One, if there were tire limits, like there is in Formula One, if there was limits on how many chains and how many bits and bobs you could buy every year, then that would bring down the cost and make these guys who make these little elf-sized things less money. Am I wrong? Is there a conspiracy? I see a conspiracy.
I don't want to say there's a conspiracy. Shit, this is a completely different podcast altogether than the one I thought I was joining. So I'm not sure there's any conspiracy. I think that people in the current system will make money how they want to make money, right? I think for me, the opportunity that I saw was exactly what you've just said, right? So if we just specify everything and if we control every element of it ourselves, then you can keep the costs fixed. And all the kids get the same on-track experience. And by the way, one kid can't outspend another kid, regardless of what the size of their bank balance is.
I think you need a security guard, Rob. I think Karting is going to come
That's
after
right.
you.
You need a security detail.
I think you need protection, honestly.
You're gonna get two in the back of the head. Tiny Tires sends its regards.
Yeah. So yeah, you're gonna get whacked. I think you're gonna get whacked if you're not careful. Are there some rich kids? Do rich kids participate in this, or they're like, no, I would like to buy 20 engines and have an unfair advantage?
Right.
No, we get because you don't want to be like chippy about it, right? And say, oh, we're for like kids of a certain demo. We're agnostic, right? Come on.
I know you're agnostic, but if I can afford to buy my son 100 engines and he wins every race, do I really want to go to your program?
Well, I would say 80% of the time, no, you don't. But there's still 20% of the time. There's still 20% of those kids who do want to do it. I thought it was pretty interesting. So I was talking to, I was explaining this when I first started, Lando's dad, who's a pal of mine, Lando Norris's dad. He was, we were just chit chatting about it, and I said to him what I was doing and he said to me, and Adam is, he's in any terms, he's a wealthy guy.
He's minted.
Yeah.
He's minted. Adam, you are minted. And Adam said to me, "Look, if this was around when Lando was a kid, when Lando was karting, he said I'd have put him in it. He said, as all we were trying to do was just get him as much time in the seat as we possibly could. So he said I'd definitely put him in it because it was just an economical way of going karting. So there you go. So some would, some don't.
Yeah. It seemed like there would also potentially be a tipping point of like, if this can become kind of like the gold standard, if this can become, you can go spend your money over there, but like this is where this is really where you prove your worth. This is where you're going to get noticed. Then they wouldn't have a choice because go spend your money in these other karting leagues, but this is kind of the gold standard over here. Is that kind of maybe part of the goal?
Yeah, exactly. I mean, if it becomes the de facto go-to place for, the market will decide, right? It's not up to me to wax lyrical about, what should happen here. Like anything, the market decides, right? And it's always a market, an undemocratized market. There's always untapped opportunity in it. It's like anything, right? It's like anything that where you collapse the price point, and give similar or better service. Of course, the market votes with its feet. But I think one thing for me and all the research that I started doing, which was we go back to the original point of why we started this. When I first started to look at karting, I'm like, karting's so great. why are there so few kids that do it? That's right, because the numbers are so small. So I'm not even, because the price point is so high. So we're not even that bothered about like trying to capture a percentage of the current market, even though we're seeing them migrate towards us in the UK. That's great. But what our premise is because we've collapsed the price point for the same product, then the market, actually your addressable market, I'm getting all business-like now, but your addressable market is much bigger, right? It's like, if all of a sudden, like I could make Ferraris, I could make exactly the same product for 20 grand. Suddenly my addressable market for Ferraris is much, much bigger than it is today. And that's all we're trying to do.
But okay, so a few questions there. It's a little bit self-selecting still, though, because don't you still need family backing to get into single seaters more often than not?
It's a good question. It's almost like I teed these questions up. So you're right, because if we don't close the loop to cars, then what will happen is that the kids will get to the top of our pyramid, but then what will happen is they can't go on anymore unless we can get them back in, right? So we thought about this, and what we're going to do is, so 2025 there will be 3 hubs, 2 in the US, 1 in the UK, and what will happen is at the end of 25, we will bring together the best kids from those 3 championships. And then those kids will come together in a world final. It'll be a really cool event, with, it'll be like a proper event, not like some like boring, like grassroots motorsport event. We're going to make it a proper event. It's going to be a party. And we're going to have these kids, the best kids from the 3 championships racing. And then from that, we will then pick the best kid, the best driver in the age-appropriate category, and we're going to put them into Formula 4. So we're going to fully back them into Formula 4. So in 2026, we will have 1 driver from the karting league in FIA Formula 4. In 2027, we'll continue to do that. In 2027, we'll have more, and we will continue to back these kids through their career as well. Now, at some point, it's going to get very expensive, and of course, we will need help and backing. But then you've kind of got kids who've gone all the way through our league, winning everything. They've gone into Formula 4 and they're winning everything. That should be a kind of a sure bet for people to come in and start helping out at that point, as they go to Formula 3, Formula 2, Formula 1. But we definitely have ambitions, for ourselves to be running these kids as well. That could be running our own Formula 4 team. It could be, then going on from there to Formula 4, Formula 3, Formula 2. And then guess what? You're asking about whether or not I would go back into Formula 1. Well, who knows?
Would F1 be interested in this? Because this might be a more efficient way for them to find talent. Why wouldn't they put money into this instead of having to fund 900 different people, hope that they make it through, hope that they're good? Wouldn't this maybe be in their interest?
I think so. I mean, we talk about it. One of the things that I've been fairly clear on over the last 2-3 years while we've been building this up is that I just needed space to be able to do it myself. Make a lot of mistakes. Reset certain parts of it, different technologies and all the rest of it. And having Formula 1 or the FIA or somebody like that, in with me at that point, I don't think would have been that helpful because, there's a possibility that an organization like that can slow it down or can tend it towards something that they want rather than what I think is just best for the sport and the market. We've got it to a point now where we're going to grow it very, very rapidly. And then interestingly, there are lots of, I can't give you too many details, but there are, different conversations going on, and really interesting conversations as well. But yeah, of course it would be, this is ripe for, Formula 1 themselves or the teams or whoever it is, to start to use this as an incubation, a talent incubation system where you can get kids from, literally 50 plus different countries around the world, and you know, find the best talent from them as well, and talent from atypical, non-traditional backgrounds. You know, kids who haven't got the usual, you know, bags of money.
What's up, Vankas? We have to talk to you about our newest sponsor, Dollar Shave Club. You've heard them, you've seen them, but have you worked with them? Because I'm going to tell you, I thought that Dollar Shave Club just made razors, but they do so much more. Whether you're going for a smooth shave or just maintaining a beard, Dollar Shave Club offers shave and grooming products that are always high quality but never overpriced. You're going to want to try their top sellers, which includes the Club Series 6 Blade Razor, which isn't just any razor, it's a vacation for your punum. With 6 stainless steel blades and a vitamin E-infused lubricant strip, this razor delivers the closest, most comfortable shave imaginable. You will have a face like a baby's bottom, as my booba used to say. Also, if you're a hairy guy like me, the precision trimmer is perfect. It gets to all those hard-to-reach areas, the nose, the ear. You don't want to have hair going out of there. And that's where the precision trimmer comes in handy. You never get nicked, always leaves you clean and handsome. It's really great. They ship it right to your door, but you can also now get it in retail, but you don't have to take our word for it. Okay, you can try Dollar Shave Club products, which are now available everywhere. So you can order them on their website, Amazon, or get them at your favorite retailer near you. You can also visit their site right now for 20% off, $20 or more, and get your products delivered right to your door. Just visit dollarshaveclub.com/redflags and use promo code REDFLAGS for 20% off, $20 or more. And remember, however you shave, Dollar Shave Club is here to help you stay handsome. We also, I think, read that in your inaugural season, there was a 20% female participation in the... Can you speak to, you know, the kind of efforts of getting girls involved in karting?
Well, I mean, this was something that... So I do quite a few panels and public speaking and stuff like that. And like, I kind of sat on... You know, I remember just sitting on a panel once, and it was about female participation in motorsport, and it was about they were talking about like the tiny numbers, like 5% participation and 3% participation, and you know, and like a 10-year plan to like make changes to get it up to 10% and stuff like that. And I remember coming back and talking to the team and saying, "Fuck, it can't be that difficult. Come on, it's totally like not relatable to females. That's why they don't do it, right? So why don't we do some marketing campaigns? Let's have a look at what the problems are of getting females involved." So you start to have a look at it, right? There's a young female who might be 12, 13 years old. She walks into a karting paddock, and it's 99% male, right? It's not a particularly relatable or friendly environment, right? All of the let's say the karting companies,
you need to get more girls
to
get more girls.
You need to get more girls to get more girls, right? So I'm a huge advocate. I mean, my business here is probably 50-50. In fact, us males might be outnumbered. I don't even know. I just know that like it just kind of self-manages itself, because it's something that I've tried to do from very early on in my career. And as I say, I think this business now, it almost like serves itself, that females want to come because there's empowered females here. So I came back from this thing that I was like, oh, come on, it cannot be this difficult, right? Are we really kidding ourselves that it needs all of these great minds? Let's make it more relatable. Let's do some marketing campaigns. Let's actually directly advertise to young females. And guess what? Within a year, we were 20%, right? Right now, we're like 30%. In some of the categories, the younger categories, we're 50%. Why? Because we actually got off our fucking asses and did something about it, right? So... You know, I do think there's a lot of talk in this sport, in all sports. There's a lot of talk, and sometimes you just have to take action and get on with it.
Wow.
Quiet silence.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's amazing stuff. You know, I feel like, you know, I've listened to a few interviews with you. I feel like everyone's, you know, you've got this amazing Formula One career, but I think that what you're doing now is incredible. I think that like something that, you know, a lot of people, especially new fans, were looking at the sport, we're like, oh, this is just, you know, a billionaire club for these like, young rich men, and it feels like there's got to be and that's why people, I think, fall in love so much when you have a story like Lewis, when you have even someone like Ocon or Alonso who kind of like beat the odds, beat the financial constraints that they had, and so you're setting something up for that.
Is it harder to be Lewis? Is it harder to be Alonso? Is that harder than it's ever been?
Yeah, 100%. 100% it is, because it's just become, back in Lewis's day, when he was karting with his dad before he got picked up, spending a lot of money was like 20-25 grand. It's still a lot of money today, right? Now that you there's no way you would get away with spending that and still be winning like he was. If you went and like laid that down in today's money, which I don't know what it is, like 40-50 grand. If you went and put 40-50 grand down, huge amount of money, you'd be circling around at the back. You'd be a second off the pace, right? So it's just gone like really. So the kids can't get noticed.
Yeah, with the exception of Lawson, I think like Kimi comes from a pretty decent background. Berriman comes from a pretty well. Like they all like.
There's a bunch of new rookies coming into F1 coming up, and Lawson. I mean, we talked with Liam last year, and he was talking about how his dad thought that he sucked. And that he was like, Dad, I need a new engine. Please, it's not me, it's the engine. The dad was like,
coming in last every race.
He was coming in last, and then the dad was like, okay, I'm gonna sell a kidney and get you this new engine. And then he did, and then he got pole, and then it was like, okay, now it's he saw that it was worth it. But it's certainly no. I think what you're doing here is hugely impactful. You started it being like, I'm running a fucking go-kart team. It's lame. It's incredible. I think it's amazing.
Rob, do you think there's a Formula One driver in there right now?
I think that in the UK we have two guys. Yeah, I won't tell you who they are because all the Formula One teams will come and snap them up. But I think we've got two guys. I tell you one story, and this is a true story. So, I went to the track around about a year back, and as I pulled into the track, this guy runs up to me, and I can't get to all of the events, right? As much as I'd like to, because I'm usually swapping the go-kart paddock with the Formula One paddock or whatever it is, right? So, but whatever, right? I can't get to every event, but so I just happened to like kind of rock up to practice day, and this guy like runs up. I hadn't even got out the car. And this guy runs over and he goes, "Oh, your karts are shit." Well, nice to meet you too.
I'm Tony
nice
from Big Karting. No, I'm sorry.
He was just about to whack me, but I got out there.
Yeah, exactly.
Anyway, I said, all right, yeah. And why? He said, because there's a kid over there and he's got no experience and he's beating my kid. I went, run that by me again. Let's just process this. And I said, what are you talking about? And he said, there's a kid over there. He said, I talked to his dad because he keeps winning everything. And his dad said that he's never done any karting before. And I went, okay. I said, well, let's go and have a look, and I did think to myself, well, maybe the kid's got a dodgy cart or something like that. So I walked over and he went, and as I'm walking over, he's chuntering this guy and he's telling me all the right KPIs. He's saying, I've spent 150 grand this year on karting. And he tells me how much he spent on his motorhome. My motorhome cost me like £80,000 and all of this. And I'm like, how the fuck is that relevant to how good your kid is? Right. So we get to the fence and he goes, it's my son there. That's my kid there. And he said, watch him go around the corner. So I'm watching this kid go around the corner. I hope this guy's not watching the podcast because he'll recognize who he is from this story. So I watch the kid go around the corner and I kind of make this noise to the dad. Uh-huh. And in my mind, I thought, he is utter shit. If you spent £150,000 on that, you should have fucking put it all on red, mate. And then, and then the other kid comes round. He's got like his dad's boiler suit on or something. He's never been in a kart before. And he comes round, he sets it up, he brakes in the right place. He kind of sets up the kart so he turns it in. He's over the curbs and he's away. He went, you see how good that kart is? And I just had to turn to the guy and go, that's a fucking driver, mate. I'm sorry, I don't know what to tell you, but that is a driver that's just gone through there. I subsequently go to the dad and I say to the dad, of the
the other kid.
And I say, how much karting have you done before? And he says, oh, well, we've been to like the indoor tracks and we've done a bit of leisure karting. I was going, come on. And it was true. And that's what. And he's still with us now. And honestly, the kid is fantastic. He's like, if he had money, he would have progressed already through the normal, he'd be in Formula 4 now. He'd be smashing it. But there's tons of stories like that. He's probably our best. We've got another couple of that ilk. Definitely can be Formula 1 drivers. 100%, I can tell you these kids can be Formula 1 drivers.
Is that tough when you have to say to another parent, like, parent one, this kid is faster than you?
That's why I don't go.
Yeah. Do you have that same attitude that you had with Felipe back in the day?
Yeah.
Yeah, I think I'm fairly straightforward. I mean, you got to be like, some of the kids are like 5 and 6, right? And it's...
Do you ever say, "Hey, save your money, quit right now"? I'm saving you a shitload of money. Put it in uni. Put it in a trust fund for his uni.
That's right.
Something like that.
No,
or do you ever go like, "Hey, maybe your kid would like engineering. Maybe you could come work on the car"? Like,
yeah, there we go.
He thought about soccer. No, I mean, look, it's not just about like the kids who are going to win, right? If we're going to have 1 million kids through this program, we want to have kids who learn from it as well. There's going to be a tiny percentage who become racing drivers, and even tiny percentage who become Formula 1 drivers. So it's got to be fun and, like something that they enjoy doing as well. Not everybody should come into this thinking that they're going to be the next Lewis, because unfortunately they're not.
Everybody probably comes in thinking that a little bit, though. Could be.
Oh, dude, you cannot believe the. I mean, it's. I thought football or soccer parents. My kids played a lot of football. I thought they were deluded. Man, this community is off the charts. They all come in like thinking, oh yeah, I think they've got talent. I think they're going to be a Formula 1 driver. I'm like, man, they're like 5. Like, take it easy. Like,
they're 5 and they don't even understand. They don't even understand how to ride a corner. They don't even understand how to ride a curb. Your kid sucks.
Look, are you seeing this telemetry? Do you ever look at Alonso's telemetry? Did you ever look at like Alonso's telemetry back at Ferrari or Michael Schumacher's telemetry or one of those? Are you able to like look at someone's telemetry like in the Matrix when Neo is like become the one and like all the green letters become, the image, and you're like, he's beginning. Is it like, do you like look at that stuff and be blown away? Is that crazy to you looking at that stuff?
No, I don't think so, because you just get so used to looking at it. It just becomes second nature. You kind of map it all out in your head, right? You kind of map out like what you should be seeing and where you should be seeing it and like what it should look like, and you know what to expect. So I think when you're looking at telemetry, it's kind of like second nature. It becomes like reading text almost.
Right.
It's pretty simple.
But have you ever?
But you can see a kid who's good, though,
Has anyone
right?
ever been Hemingway? Have you ever seen text that's Hemingway? Or Shakespeare?
Yeah, definitely. I mean, I think, with what Michael used to do with the car, the way he used to drive it, but even the way that Fernando is able to adapt, and sometimes, when you see, I think, like when you're looking at how close they can get to, not always, it was always like a special occasion, but they could get to the limit and just over, what we were looking at, like over the limit of adhesion. Some drivers, you would be able to see from the telemetry that actually you've got more grip available, like go faster. And that was usually the case because you always give yourself a margin, right? Because you're driving cars at 200 mile an hour. If you make a mistake, it's a big mistake. Right. So there's always a bit of a margin here with the drivers. But sometimes you would see them, driving so on the limit of grip, and if they just were to make a tiny mistake, they would, it was wipeout, but just able to balance it like so finely. And Michael was so good at that, the hand-feet coordination. He was, and the feel that he had for the car. He was just like otherworldly at times.
All right, we've got a couple of fan questions here, and then we'll let you go. But we had a couple people. This is from Julie Ovi. What's it like being a race engineer to a driver in the midst of a title battle?
Intense is the best word to sum it up. It's very, very intense, and you can't allow emotion to come into it. I think I used to get to the end of the really hard World Championship battles that I was involved in. I would get to the end of it, and it would be the last race of the season, and it sometimes went our way, it sometimes went the other way, and I always had exactly the same reaction. It was always like this outpouring of emotion that you'd kept like it on the straight and narrow for 10 months, because you'd been involved in this really intense battle, and it was really hard work. Not always, sometimes you can win world championships and you can wrap it up by the summer season, right? And you kind of like, okay, that wasn't particularly intense. Sometimes you start the year with a dog of a car, and, you have 0 points from the first 4 races, and that's not particularly intense. But it's when you're neck and neck with another team, or even a driver within your team, it just becomes so unbelievably intense, and you cannot put a foot wrong, and you can't let emotions come into it. You've got to kind of remain in like this robotic state of mind of of trying to attain this perfection. So I think you get to the end of it after all that intensity, and then you just become an emotion quivering wreck. So I always used to take myself off to like some quiet part of the paddock where there wasn't any other people or photographers or anything like that, and have a little cry, and then get back on the horse and do it again for another 12 months.
Yeah, we heard you say that after 2008, you just like found a little room and cried to yourself for an hour.
Fucking hell, yeah, that was intense.
Yeah. That was about as intense as it could have been.
Everybody but you thought that they had already won, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
You were the only person. You were like the guy in the middle of the thing who's like, because shell shock.
Fucking dragging me off the pit wall saying, "Oh, we've won. We haven't won. Like, get the fuck off me. I'm at work, you idiots." So it was like someone comes in this office.
Fucking clock!
That's the craziest clip I've ever seen. Like the whole garage is going crazy, and just
yeah.
And then
and then Nicole Scherzinger is in the other garage freaking out. I was like, "What the fuck is going on?"
Yeah.
Okay, this is from OER219. Besides Felipe Baby, did you have any other nicknames for Felipe in your time?
Well, Felipe Baby was never a nickname. In fact, he uses that now more than me.
He owes you. He owes you money.
Yeah, he does. Yeah, I'll give him a ring after this, and
yeah,
that's a good idea. I'll tell him he owes me royalties. No, I don't think so. Oh, Philip, because I can't remember who, but somebody used to call him Philip, and I can't remember who it was. It was somebody like I can't remember who it was, but somebody used to call him Philip, like the English version of Felipe, which I thought was quite like endearing, that you would be so like lazy that you couldn't even like pronounce like the Portuguese version. So I used to call him Philip. I still do call him Philip. Philip. No, but I didn't really have any nicknames. I mean, we called each other bad names at times. We said, on many occasions that we didn't think the other one was a very nice person and they should go away.
Yeah.
Sure.
This is one from Ninja T-Boy. The press have said that Alonso's been destructive to teams. What was it like? I'm going to amend this question. Why are they wrong?
Why does he have that rep?
He has that rep. He's like, what you see from the outside is not what you get from the inside. So the Fernando from the outside, is like Michael, right? Michael Schumacher used to have this external perception that he was like arrogant and like robotic and like, a terrible person. Actually, he was he was a beautiful human being, and very, very generous, generous of spirit, generous of mind. He would very, very humble, a lot of humility, a lot of self-doubt, which drove him on to be as great as he was, right? He never, he would always be questioning himself, and always be, very much, very generous with the team, very generous of the fact that he couldn't do this without the team, and the team couldn't do it without him. Fair enough. And I think Fernando suffers a little bit with the same thing. Fernando is a very private character. The personality that you see is not the personality that you get within the team. The personality in the team is somebody who is intensely competitive, right? He wants to win within the rules at all costs. And that makes him somebody who you want on your side, right? That makes him somebody who you desperately need in your team. You need people like that because it's so intense and it's so difficult. You need people who are constantly, on the front foot trying to win. So I think Fernando, is a sportsman. He's intensely competitive. It sometimes boils over, like it's sometimes boiled over with Michael, like it boils over with all of us, me, everybody included. But I think that Fernando, when you've got him in your team, you have a real asset. 100%.
Is it always within the rules? Because in 2007, he was pretty okay with Piquet Jr. taking a fucking dive for that win there.
Yeah, Felipe Massa, your friend Philip might have a different interpretation of what
I think he does, doesn't he?
Yeah.
I think he does.
Yeah.
Oh, I had a question. If you had to go back and be a race engineer for one driver on the grid today, who would it be?
Max, 100%.
Yeah.
I think Max and I would get on.
You're like, GP, come work with me, and then he gets there, and then you take his job.
Yeah, real fucking sneaky move.
Yeah, that's right.
Yeah.
And what do you think? Yeah,
he wants to win.
What do you think of? What do you think with this Lewis going to Ferrari? You've spent a lot of time there. What do you think these next couple years might hold for the Scuderia?
For an Englishman in Maranello.
For an Englishman in Maranello, yeah.
Another one. Well, first of all, I'm a massive fan of Lewis. I love him. I love what he does for the sport. I love what he does outside of the sport. So I am so happy that he is going to Ferrari. I think it's right. You kind of, it's weird for all of us when we see a driver of that stature who makes a change and changes team after being having so much success with another team. But I think you soon get over that. Within the first couple of months of the year, he'll be a Ferrari driver, and it will be like he's always been a Ferrari driver. But I think it's really good for the sport. I think it's great. There's no negatives. There's no downside to this move, right? Lewis is making a move. If Lewis can win his 8th World Championship as a Ferrari driver, it's a fairy tale. Lewis will help Ferrari. It will just drive the team on to that next level, that next few percent that it needs to become a consistently winning team. Lewis leaving has opened up the door for another really strong talent to come into the sport, and I'm really happy about that. I think Antonelli is going to be, he's a real, strong young charger. So I don't really see any downsides. There's only upsides here, and I think it's just great for the sport. And I'm so glad that Lewis has done it.
Well, thank you so much for coming on. This has been fascinating. We had someone write in about there are karting data in the U.S. So we have some parents of karters. So if someone wants to get their kid involved, where can they go about doing that?
You got to go to F.A.T, F.A.T, FATkartingleague.com.
So is this what's the body positive?
Yeah,
karting?
what's up with this fat karting?
Are you trying to get middle class kids in or bigger kids? I don't really understand the labeling.
Fat. So F.A.T International. So a really good friend of mine, Ferdy Porsche, owns Ferdy Porsche of the Porsche family. who is my business partner, owns a brand called F.A.T International. F.A.T International was Francois Allemande Transport. So it used to be trucks that went from haulage trucks that went from France to Germany back in the 70s, 80s, 90s, and they sponsored a lot of Le Mans cars. So Ferdy's like really loves this brand because it's quite cool and iconic. And like if you look at like F.A.T International, you'll see they do lots of like really cool events now. Ice race in Austria, they brought that back. They're trying to like make motorsport more accessible and all of that. They sponsored a car at Le Mans this year. They've got ambitions to get to Formula One. So Ferdy and I come together and said, hey, why don't we make it instead of global karting league that is a very descriptive name, but maybe slightly bland. Ferdy, I need your genius, your creative genius, and because he's like super on like all the social media and all of that type of stuff, creativity, creating events, creating a vibe, creating a brand. So we put it together and we use the F.A.T from F.A.T International and Karting League, and there you go, and that's what it is. So that's why it's cool. We launched that brand last year, and I think so they tell me, I think we've got almost 11,000 followers on Instagram. I was just about to check, but I'm not going to check that.
All right, go follow them. Yeah. Well, you've talked about you want diversity in terms of socioeconomic, drivers on the grid. I think that there's a big lack of diversity with fat drivers. There's no fat drivers in Formula One anymore. And I think that you're doing Fangio's long gone, and I think that's the next frontier.
That's the next frontier.
Is that you got to get a 225 guy on the grid. That's what you need. And hey, when you need that, I'm your man. So okay, so you can go find them there if for all those karting parents.
We'll put the link in the bio.
We'll put the link in the bio. So we start off every podcast with "What's up, Vankas," which is an ode to Gunter Steiner. I don't know if you watched Drive to Survive, but that was one of his iconic quotes. Could you honor us with a goodbye, Vankas?
In Gunter, let me manifest Gunter. The car.
Yeah,
that's pretty good.
Goodbye, Vankas.
Yes! That was really good. Goodbye, Vankas.